Hello, hello, Facebook land. I'm so excited to be here with you. It's been a while, so I'm really glad to be here this morning. And thank you for taking the time to join me. It's always fun when you get online and then you're like, what? My hair looks like that? You know, it's not really real life anymore, but it is interacting with folks, right? So I am clean, all that stuff. And I'm not wearing a mask though, because I'm on video. So um, I am going to give folks some time to join, and feel free, as always, if you want to say hello, give me a wave, or tell where you're watching from, that's great, and you don't have to do that. Feel free to do what works for you. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Shawnee Lavender. I am a parent coach, and I work with primarily moms to create conscious and loving families and to really do their best to end patterns of parenting from fear and less than and coercion and things that most of us experienced, even with good parents in our own childhood. So that's why I'm here. I'm doing this in service of families like yours, families out there. And even though this is a special time, today's video is also going to apply to regular times as well, because I'm talking about stress, and stress is here with us any and every day, not just during a pandemic. So just know that it will apply to your everyday parenting experience. I did ask parents for questions recently, and so I have several of those with me today, and I'm going to respond to them. I'm going to do that at the end. So at the beginning, we're going to do some settling in together, and then I'm going to give some general information about stress, how to manage stress in our lives as parents and then with our children. Hey, everybody. But then at the end, I'm going to take the questions that were sent to me and I'm going to respond to some of them. So if you send in specific questions, I may or may not respond to yours today, but I will be responding to people's questions at the end. And feel free to join me for as long as it fits for you. If you need to step away and do something else, feel free to check back in and see if I'm still here. And I will respond to questions and comments. I do that at a few times through the video. So that's what I have to say for now. I am going to shut my eyes. It's going to look weird to those people joining while I'm doing it, but I invite you, if you're somewhere where you can do that. This is just doing some centering, just breathing, really getting ourselves here. So if that works for you, feel free to follow along with me. If not, just follow along with the rest, and hopefully this will be useful for you too. So either close your eyes or let them be open, either fully or just softly gazing at the floor. And take some nice, slow, deep breaths. And as you do that, you might notice if there's any tension or tight places in your body. Nothing you have to do, just be here right now. If you want, you can feel a chair underneath you or a bed beneath you or the floor beneath your feet. And notice that that support is there holding you up. And as you slow down, I invite you to let go of anything that's been happening up until this point in your day. Just set it down. You can pick it back up again in a little bit if you choose to. And similarly, if there are any thoughts coming in about, I need to do this, or I've got to remember, or then this is going to be this afternoon or this evening, just gently let those thoughts settle, as well as if they were sand falling to the bottom of a pool or an ocean or a pond. And know that you can pick anything back up later. This time is for you. And the more you can be slow and present, the more you can get out of this time. And when you're ready, take another deep breath or two and come back to this present moment, opening your eyes if you've had them shut. So glad to see some of you with me this morning. So thank you for making this time to be together in community. So I wanted to start off, since we're talking about stress, I want to talk about what stress is because it's a word we use a lot and we may have some different definitions. So I want to talk with you about what I'm talking about, what it looks like, and specifically how it impacts our brain and also how it impacts our interactions with our kids and other people as well. But I'm focused on parents, so that's who I'm going to talk to. So our brain is set up. It's such a wonderful part of our body. It's like, yay, brain. It's got all these different parts. It's got parts that are really looking out for our safety and security and our own being to be alive, right? So that's why you don't have to think, breathe in, breathe out, all those things. So our brain is set up to help keep us safe. And one of the things our brain does is it looks for patterns. So it's out there, and I say it. What I mean by that is that our senses, our sight, our hearing, our sense of taste, our sense of touch, and our interior senses, proprioception, all those things are paying attention to the input that we get inside from our bodies and outside from the external world, and sending that information to our brain. And all of those systems together, our neurological system, work to help keep us safe and look for patterns to say, oh, I've been here before. I've seen this. I've done this. I have the tools to address this situation that I find myself in. And so that's one reason why little babies get stressed, right? Is because they don't have a lot of familiarity. It's new to them. And so as adults, though, and older children, we have started to have a storehouse of experience and tools and know-how that our brain can then apply to new situations. So that's why it's easier for us as adults in some ways. So our brains, though, when they come up with something that's unfamiliar, then they say, wait, what is this? And so think about it. If you're literally learning something new, you do something similar, right? You say, well, wait, I don't understand this. Is this the language I know? Is this something I have anything to draw from? So that's what's going on for many of us in this current situation with the pandemic. Even though we've been in it many weeks or several months, there's still a lot of newness, whether it's kids at home or you're doing schoolwork with them that you either haven't ever done or maybe it's been a long time. All those things have that sense of newness. So that is part of the stress that we're feeling, is there's all this unfamiliarity to us. And so that means that our brains and our neurological systems are working harder to try and figure things out, to try and keep us in this steady state. So one other thing that you want to think about when it relates to stress is that our brain has a way that it optimally functions. And everybody's a little bit different. But in general, you're thinking about things like your nutrition, your hydration, your level of rest and rejuvenation, how much sleep you're getting, your situation that you're in, your environment. All those things impact your brain and your neurological system's ability to keep you in a state of balance, in a place that you can be responsive and flexible rather than rigid and inflexible. So I love to use, I'm a visual person, so I've got this rubber band here. And so to me, this is what I think about when I think about our brain and stress, is that the more stress that is in, try and put it so it's not in the middle of my face, but the more stress that is in our lives, the more this rubber band gets stretched, right? And now I'm sort of worried, right? It's going to snap my finger. So this is not a resilient state to be in. This is not a flexible state because it's so tight and tense. So when we are rested and well nourished and feeling loved and being able to express love in the way that we want, we have a lot more play in this rubber band or in our brain, right? So that's a visual perhaps for you to be thinking about, like, oh yeah, where am I at? Am I stretched out like this right now? There's nothing wrong with it. It's no judgment, just noticing like, oh, if I'm really stretched like this, that's not going to allow me to parent in the way that I want, to be with people in the way that I want, to be with myself in the way that I want. So that's why self-awareness is really critical. We want to know if we're here or if we're here. No judgment, simply noticing. So think of that rubber band. It's a nice, and it's a good thing you can use with your kids too. Like, yeah, where are you at right now? This can even be some shorthand in your family. Like, Mom, my rubber band is stretched way too much. So yeah, say that. It's stretched too much. Or, I need something to get my rubber band to be more stretchy and bouncy. Whatever language you want to use in your family. So that's some of the things I wanted to tell you about stress. I want to add one more thing, as it's a difference between adults and kids. So adults, most of us, although we all have our different levels, Rebecca, I'm glad you like the visual. We are more fully developed, both in our bodies and our brains. And so kids, the younger, being more particular, or when kids are going through big phases of development, so whether they're learning to walk or they're learning to talk or they're going through a certain phase of puberty, all those things are stressors on their systems. And think about it, Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson, I think, do this so well. They talk about sort of the house that's under construction, and they have the upper level of the house and the lower level of the house, and that's the brain. And look up their work if you want to know more. It's really excellent. But in general, what I want you to know is that as adults, we have a lot more ability to stay in our upstairs brain, to stay in that flexible place, that place where we have executive function, the ability to control ourselves, to be creative, to resist impulses, all the things that sometimes we don't do under stress, right? So we have more abilities than our kids do. And so one of the things that happens is we forget that often, and we think, why isn't my kid doing this thing they should know how to do? Part of it is the stress, right? So their brain, same thing, their brain is already less developed than ours, but now they're feeling stressed. They're home. They love us, but they don't really want to be home all the time either. They can't see their friends. They don't really know how to do online work. They don't like being inside, look, right? So they're getting stressed. And so you put that stress on a less developed kid's brain, and they have even less ability then to regulate themselves, to make the choices you want them to make, to talk in the way you want them to talk, all those things. So part of why I wanted to start with this piece is I really want to emphasize the things that we tend to forget, because we're human, that everything we're experiencing right now is normal. It is a normal response to stress, ours and our kids. So when people get grumpy with each other, when they're yelling, when we lose our patience, all those things are normal responses to stress. So one of the things I'm hoping you'll get from this video is give yourselves a break. You're doing great. Yeah, did you yell at somebody this morning? Maybe. You can apologize. You can recover from that. So do the things that help you repair. And in the meantime, give yourselves a lot of grace, because this is a hard time. So if you have any comments you want to share, feel free to do that. I'm going to take a drink, and then I'm going to give some tips about what you can do because the stress is there. So I'm going to tell you what can you do to handle it in a better way and support your kids to handle it in a better way. So glad to see so many of you this morning. Feel free to share with your friends too if there's anybody you want to be able to talk with this about later. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what can you do. Thanks for the hearts. I appreciate it. So what can you do? Because, right, that's part of it. It's like the information's great, Shadi. Thank you very much. And now what can I do with it? So I want to say one more thing about stress before I get into the twos. So stress is a thing, right? There's stress that is coming to us, and it's out there. Stress load is about how we react to the stress. So again, there's stress, maybe you're doing homeschooling, right? Or not homeschooling, you're doing school at home. So that might feel really stressful for you one day, and the next day it doesn't feel so stressful, or it feels more stressful for you than it does for your partner. So that's part of the stress load. How do you each respond to it? So the stress load is what you feel and your experience. So here's how you can reduce that stress load. And you all have ideas too. I am not the only expert here. So if you want to share what you're doing, feel free to post that because I know other parents will appreciate that too. So the first thing I want to suggest is to reduce your expectations. And this is for yourself and for your kids. So while this can be a great time to learn something new or do something new in some way, the idea of we should be able to do this, all of those shoulds or demands are going to increase the stress load. So that doesn't mean you don't have boundaries. I'm going to talk about boundaries in another video, but doesn't mean that. It does mean, though, to really check in and say, am I expecting myself to be a super mom? Am I expecting myself to be able to do my job that I do for pay, keep my kids fed, keep them in clean clothes, entertain them, do schoolwork with them, keep myself healthy? You know, what's on your list? And if you have a bunch of things on your list, the chances are your stress load is going to feel a lot bigger. So reduce those expectations on yourself, reduce them on your kids. You know, should they really be playing outside for 4 hours a day? Maybe you'd like that, and maybe that would help them so you can have those conversations. But anytime it becomes a should or a demand, that's increasing the stress load, and that's something you have control over. So reduce those expectations. Second thing I want to invite you to do is reduce the changes. So there's already tons of change, and some of it you may have adapted to in some ways, but there's changes in our routines. There's changes maybe in who's doing what, which roles people are playing at home. There's changes that your kids are experiencing if they're in school that relate to how they're doing school or what they're expected to do or what they're actually doing. So all of those are change. And remember how I talked about the brain earlier? Every new piece is more stress for the brain. So as much as you can, reduce the newness. Find some things that can be your common ground that either you've already really been doing or they're things that really help everybody feel settled and regulated in your family. Now I want to talk about 3 things you can increase that are going to help. So number 1, increase time cushions. Now we're not having to run around for the most part from here to there like we might do in our typical before coronavirus life, but the same still holds true. Sometimes we're like, no, we need to get dinner made, we need to get to bed, we need to do this, we need to do that. And all of that is gonna add to our stress load. So anytime you can, give yourself more time to do something. If you think you should be able to make dinner in 30 minutes, give yourself 45, give yourself an hour. Reduce those time constraints so that you're not under as much stress. The second thing you want to increase is connection. And so we say, oh, wait, here we are in this virtual world. How do we do that? You might do it like this. You might talk with a friend. I'm getting ready to talk with a friend later today. I'm really looking forward to it. So you can do that, but you can also do those in-person connections. So this means that time with your kids, really being with them. Maybe you're laying on the floor, lying on the floor. Sorry, grammarians out there. Maybe you're lying on the floor with them, reading a book. Maybe you are outside together, just sitting in your yard and watching the clouds. Maybe you're snuggled together in bed, reading or watching something. So have those times of connection. And one of my coaches, she said something that I always loved. She talked about connection. Think of skin to skin, eye to eye, and heart to heart. So that means, you know, looking at your kids, really looking at them like, yeah, let's just sit together and let me admire you. You know, you used to do that when they were babies, so keep doing that. Maybe it's skin to skin. Maybe it's holding hands. Maybe it's, you know, snuggling together in your t-shirts. You know, it doesn't matter, but the eye to eye, skin to skin, heart to heart, all of those things help our systems regulate themselves. Those are all really soothing to our nervous system. Hi, my brother's there. I love it. It's always fun to be with family, even if it's distant. So the third thing I want to suggest that you increase is anything that your kids, or your family does that gives you peace, helps you be regulated. And when I say regulated, to make sure we're talking about the same thing, that's anything that helps your nervous system feel calm, feel safe, feel secure. So that's what we did at the top. We did the breathing. That signals our nervous system that we're safe, right? If you are running from something, you're going to be breathing at a high rate, and that's going to produce adrenaline in your system, and your system's going to say, oh, something's wrong, unless you're running and you do that regularly, for exercise. But you are helping your system say, oh, it's all good, when you take time to slow down your breathing and slow down your body. So feel free to do that. Anything else? And I'd love to hear if you all have things that you love to do to help yourself feel centered, feel calm. Post it in a comment. Again, somebody else may be out there looking for just something that they can use, that they've tried breathing, it doesn't work for them, or whatever. So feel free to post what you do. But all of that, the reason that that's so important is that when we are regulated, and then again, when we're calm, when we're centered, that sends a signal to our children that, oh, it must be safe. One of my favorite stories, I one day was out trail running, and I ran across a mother deer and a doe together. And the doe, or the fawn rather, not the mom, the fawn was like looking at me. Her ears were really, whoa, what's going on here? And she was really agitated at first. And then she looked over, maybe smelled, maybe heard her mother. I don't know what all senses she used, but it was evident to me watching her that she literally could feel that, oh, mom is chill, because the mother deer sort of looked up, looked at me, sensed, I guess, it was okay, put her head back down, and was eating. So the fawn said, oh, mom's showing me that this is safe, so I can therefore let my guard down. We are the same. We're mammals. That's the way we're wired. So if you want your kids to be more calm, not telling them to be more calm, not telling them to settle down, not forcing them to do stuff, which we all do sometimes, the best thing you can do is calm yourself. What can you do that helps you feel calm, so that they will feel that from you, and they will sense that, and they'll know, oh, yeah, it's actually okay. Now, if they're really stirred up, it's not going to make them be calm, but it's going to be one less stressor that their system is sensing. I want to emphasize too that with really sensitive kids, they are going to notice things that you may not even be aware of. So you might not think you're agitated, but they can see your shoulders, or they can see tension in your neck, or they hear that change, that slight change in your tone of voice. So know that sensitive children are going to be even more attuned to your mental state. So those are the things you can do. You want to reduce your expectations. You want to reduce newness and change. And then you want to increase connection for yourself and your kids, time cushions, and all those things that you can do to help you feel really centered, calm, and regulated. Okay, so that's my general talk that I wanted to give. And I'm going to switch over here momentarily to responding to parent questions. So if you have any questions right now, you can add yours in. If you didn't fill out the survey, that's totally fine. Feel free to post. Otherwise, I'm going to get my glasses so I can read questions. Otherwise, I'll have no idea what I'm responding to. And thanks. I'm so glad to see you all. I've got some of my grad school classmates here. Yay, we're done with the semester. Hopefully. Okay. All right, let me get myself situated. Awesome. Hey, Sherry. So I'm going to read through the scenarios that the parents sent me, and then I'm going to give a couple, one or two ideas for each one. So you might find yourself in one of these scenarios. It might be the same, it might be a little bit different. So first I want to say that 68% of the parents, when you filled out the form, you were feeling a level of stress higher than you normally do, all the way up to the highest you've ever felt. So I did a scale called a Likert scale for my grad school classmates. We all know that, 1 to 5, and people said 3 or higher, 68% people said level 3 or higher for their stress. The other thing that I want to share, just because this is influencing my responses, is that of the children that you have, 53% of the parents said they have, and obviously people have more than one kid, but 53% said their children were ages 1 to almost 5, and then 73% said that they had a child or children who were ages 5 to almost 9. So, and then there were some on either end, but so that's where I'm going to be really focused, is a little bit on toddlers, but mostly on those school age kids, unless there's a specific reason not to. Thanks, Jason. Yay, thanks for your comment. So here's a parent's issue. It says, my daughter struggles to clearly state her negative emotions without yelling. In turn, I struggle to stay calm, especially in our new norm world, and help her through it. So, you know, I've been there. Anybody else? Feel free to raise your hand and give a like if you like, yes, that's been me. So this relates to what I was just saying. So number one is, again, regulate yourself. Sometimes you're going to be able to do that in the moment. That's awesome. It takes practice, though. The other thing you can do is make sure in those times when you have some time or you're taking some of that time for you, that you are doing some things that regulate you. So maybe you didn't do it in the moment. We're going to mess it up a lot of times, and that's okay. It's really okay. There's no such thing as perfect. We're all learning every day and growing and changing. So when you don't, or when you're not able to regulate in the moment, take some time afterwards and say, okay, what can I do differently? But then when you talk about that, one of the things you want to think about, going again to our children are dysregulated. So if your daughter is yelling, that's telling me a couple of things. Likely she's dysregulated. 2, it's likely that at some level she is not feeling heard. And she's saying, I need you. Okay, so it's not the way we usually like people to say, I need you, but it's her best way in that moment to say, hey, mom, or hey, dad, or hey, teacher, whomever she's with, I need something. So my tip here is specifically to connect. And with that connection, think about getting down at her eye level so you're not above her, because all of these things are going to help signal to her brain that it's safe, you're not a threat, she can settle. So get at or below her eye level. Slow down your voice and think about your tone of voice, because that's really a thing that as mammals that we're really keyed into is what is that tone of voice? Does that say that's that irritated tone of voice, right? Or is it, I hear you, it's really hard right now. So do those things that help her, not necessarily even verbally, but to know, oh, okay, I'm safe. Mom's here. She's going to work through this with me. So at or below eye level, slow down your rate of speech, watch your tone of voice. And then the third thing is think about that connection. So you might touch her on the shoulder. You might put your hand on her head. You might put your hand on her knee. You can ask her if you can touch her right now. Can I hold your hand right now? All of those things are ways for her to know that you're with her and you want to support her, but it's much better than saying, don't yell, use a better tone of voice. All of those things feel like more stress on her system. She needs to feel safe first, and then you can help coach her and teach her new skills, okay? So that's number one. And again, I'm not going to go into these at super depth, otherwise we'd all be here all day, and you have other things to do. All right, so this mom, this is a school-age child. It seems like lately my 6.5-year-old son talks to me in a mean or angry tone. It feels like he's almost yelling at me when he responds to me and seems irritated with me most of the time. Logically, I can understand it and know it's hard on him too. I would just like some reassurance or guidance to deal with my own emotions when it happens. It hurts my feelings, so I either say that and am hurt for a bit, or I respond back in a similar way to him, snappy, grumpy, mean tone, and I have the worst guilt for it. Anybody else? Yeah, so it's, again, we're human, and we're all doing our best. So this one, there's some similar suggestions. More than this, though, one of the things I like to invite us to do with our kids all the time, in this time in particular, is acknowledge they have some big feelings. Now, I'm not going to go into feelings a lot because that's what I'm going to be talking about this coming Wednesday, the 13th, same time, same place, maybe even same clothes, who knows? But when our kids, especially when they're younger, they don't always have the developmental ability to articulate all their thoughts and all their feelings in a way that is an adult way, right? So they're feeling stressed, they're feeling scared, they are feeling unsettled and concerned. So all of those things are emotions that are building up in them. And so if they're not expressing those and getting those vented in a way that's healthy or that they feel soothed from it, and it doesn't mean you're failing them by any means, it just means sometimes they're not going to feel soothed. That's going to make it hard for them, again, then to talk in a polite way, to speak to you in a way that is more respectful or more loving. So giving them some time to actually vent. You might do a dance with your kids. Let's do an emotion dance, get the wiggles out, get the angry out. And it may seem silly and you may think, oh, it doesn't really work, but it does. It's letting them know, A, that they have permission to express their emotions, and B, it's normalizing them like, yeah, you know what? We're all feeling some feelings. So planning that into your day, or when you notice there's a lot of big feelings, say, you know what? Let's do one of those dances. Or at night, bedtime is a great time for this. You might check in with them and just say something like, being your age is sort of hard sometimes, isn't it? Or being at home all the time has really been hard. And you just put it out there and then be quiet. Hard for me to do, but I know you all could do it. So you just then let them, yeah, what do they say? Yeah, I miss my friends, or yeah, it's boring here. You're not trying to fix it or judge it. You're just empathizing with them. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I hear you, buddy. I love you. I love you. So that's what you want to do, is when you notice those behaviors that you're not liking, think about, how can I help my child get out some of their feelings, be heard, be empathized with? That's going to let them know you really respect them. You're there for them. And even if you can't fix it, because that's not really always our job, and it's not actually always the best thing for them, because there's just times in life that are tough. And so if it's always about something needs to be fixed for them to feel better, they're not going to have that resilience for those times that sort of just feel crappy, and you just have to endure it. So that's a good thing to do with kids. All right, feel free to stop me at any time too. If you have questions, something doesn't make sense, or you're like, hey, I do that and it works great, or I do this other thing, feel free. Okay, next parent comment. Okay, my 4-year-old has started to stutter, and we are working really hard to not get upset with her so she can work through it. But I find it difficult because I don't know if she's trying to talk too much or is really struggling with speech. I've tried to put structure in place to keep up with household chores, but it seems difficult for my other half and for our older child to keep up with the routines, and they end up not helping as much as I need them to help. Okay. And I didn't say this with the others, so let me say it now, and I apologize for parents for the other ones. First, I want to say thank you for sending me your questions and really telling me where you're at, what you're struggling with, what you would like, what you need. I really thank you for that, and I respect you for your vulnerability in doing that. Second thing I want to say to all of you is I hear you and I relate because, again, I'm a parent coach. And so I do this with parents for my living. And at the same time, I'm fully human. So I have a 9-year-old daughter. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I'm rocking the mom thing. And other times I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst mom ever. So it's okay. We're all going to do things at times where we say, oh, what did I do? Or I don't know what to do. So just know that that's normal. And I invite you to embrace it and be like, yeah, that shows I care and I'm learning and I'm growing. So with this situation, yeah, challenging because you're wanting to support, right? You don't, if there is an issue, thank you, brother. Um, if there is an issue that she's having and something coming up with speech, yeah, you really want her to be able to get support. So that might work right now. You might reach out to your pediatrician and say, hey, we're noticing this. Is there something you can do to, test her, or is there somebody else that you would refer us to? So you can make that choice if that fits for you now. In the meantime, if you don't want to do that or that doesn't work, I would say a couple things is do your best not to draw a lot of attention to it, especially if she's sensitive. That has that. Let me back up. If she's sensitive, it is really easy for sensitive children to take even well-intentioned support sometimes as criticism, like they're doing something wrong. I'm sorry, I have 5 cats, so apparently I inhaled some cat fur or something. So just be aware of that. Nothing you have to do a certain way. Just know that sensitive children can sometimes take your desire to support is that they're doing something wrong that needs to be fixed or there's something wrong with them. So I would ignore it in the sense of not making a big deal of it. And I would do the things that I talked about earlier. Do the connection, do the skin to skin, eye to eye, heart to heart. And I would invite family to slow down. So maybe in that moment, and she's 4, so she doesn't have lots of writing abilities, but you could ask her, to tell you in a different way. Can you show me right now? So you want to basically let her know that you care and you want to understand and that it's important to you, and let her know you're going to work through it together. The other piece of it, I would say, is acknowledge that piece of, I get you. So acknowledging it's hard for you to communicate sometimes right now. So again, just letting her know that you see her, that she's wanting to do this, and sometimes it's hard. That can really be a big de-stressor for her to be like, oh yeah, okay, they get it. And so I'm not in trouble, I'm not bad, there's nothing wrong with me. They get it. And sometimes you might, especially after the fact, you might use some stories or some times about struggles that others have had that lets her feel normal. Because again, if everybody else in the family doesn't stutter and she does stutter, she's going to have that sense, even at 4, she's going to have some sense of difference. And so sharing some stories with her of, oh yeah, there were people who felt different and they did find a way through it. That helps her to have that sense of relief. Like, okay, I get that maybe I don't feel like I'm in sync with everybody right now, but I don't have to feel alone. So I would advise that outside of the specific moment where she's stuttering, maybe read some books or tell some stories at night. Hi, I love seeing some new people. Thanks for being here. So next parent question or topic. Okay, my 5-year-old son and husband argue. I sometimes feel like I have 3 kids instead of 2. And my 5-year-old is having mini tantrums every time I suggest schoolwork. Okay. Yeah, raise your hand if this sounds familiar. So for this mom and anybody who feels like this is a situation that you're in, with the parent and child arguing, or maybe this is 2 siblings arguing, one of the things I like to help remind us of is that when there's so many things here, let me order them in my head. I like to encourage parents to think of the long run, because so often it's easy for us to get caught up in the right now and how do I change this, fix this, make it different, better, the way I want it right now, the way I think it should be, the way somebody told me it should be, all of that. And one of the challenges with that is that if we're not looking at the long run, like what do I want for my child in the long run? What can I help them develop in the long run? How do I hope that they'll be able to show up in their life as adults? If we forget those pieces, then sometimes we end up doing things in the short run that don't serve them in the long run. So with this, and I relate to this because I am a person who, one of my old habits is I like to be needed. And because that's a way that I believe I'm important and worthy. And so what that sometimes looks like for me is that my husband and my daughter will be in a situation, whether they're arguing or it doesn't matter, but they're in a situation and I hear something, I see something, I notice something that part of me goes, oh, I could give them some info here, or I could help them, or I could fix it, or I could blah, blah, whatever goes through my head, but it's basically, I have something to give. Yay, lovely. But at the same time, if I keep doing that, I am interfering with their ability to have their relationship, their ability to work through their own issues, their ability to find their own creativity, their ability to figure out how they gel together. And so I'm not actually supporting their relationship if I'm always interjecting, always interceding. Now, there's a difference. If it's like if you're out in public and you see somebody hit another person, you can intercede there. There's reasons and times. So if something is really going on in your family where you don't think your child is safe, I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm saying in those day-to-day, think about you don't always have to be the one that jumps in. So that's one thing, and that will relate to certain parents specifically. The other thing I would say is to look at what's really going on there for you. Are they actually struggling? One of my colleagues, she shares this great story that she has 2 boys, and she came upon them one time and they were wrestling. And the older, bigger one had the younger, littler one like pinned in this, what looked to her like this really sort of painful, horrific thing. And her instinct was to want to break it up, guys, stop doing that. And instead, she was able in that moment, thankfully, to pause and check in. And she checked in with the younger one and she's like, how are you? And he's like, oh, this is great. And so she was like, oh, okay, they don't actually need anything right now. Her vision was that they did, and one was being, treated poorly. But the little one was like, no, this is really, we're having fun. So for this mom, and if you find yourself in this situation, I invite you to check in and say, yeah, is this me? Or could I check in and see, hey, do you guys need something? Or is there some way I could be involved? Do you want me involved? I'd do that as well. And we'll get to the schoolwork some more, and I have another video actually that's already on Facebook, so check that out as far as schoolwork goes for some specific ideas there. All right, I've got one more parent email here, so if you have any questions or comments that you want me to respond to, feel free to post them and I'll get to you when I'm done with this one. So this mom says, I'm trying to work from home with a clingy 1-year-old who is unable to understand why everyone is home and why her routine has changed. I think there's a lot of adults who are still trying to understand that. So with this one, similar in some ways to the other ones, but one is, really not in a developmental place to have a conversation about things, to vent feelings, to do those kind of things. So I would say a couple of things here that as a parent, and this is the hard part, this is the part where we have to be the ones who say, oh, you know what? I can make a change here. I'm the one who has a more developed brain, who has more experience. So this means that you want to look at what's your routine. This is a place where you actually might need to make some changes. Okay, in this pandemic, I'm used to working in the morning, but my 1-year-old really, really needs more of that morning connection time. So then you want to shift your schedule. So you really want to think about, how can I meet the main needs that my child has at this time? You're not going to be able to meet every need by yourself. You're doing your best to help her feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So if you can do those 4, safe, seen, soothed, and secure, most of the time, not all the time, you're human, not all the time, but most of the time, then she will be able to tolerate some discomfort at other times. And that's okay. You want her to build that window of tolerance for, oh, this is not good. I can't get mommy right now. She needs to have some of that. But if it's too much, then she starts to get really dysregulated and some patterns get set up that you don't want to get set up. But if you can do it most of the time, so adjust your schedule, do things that really help fill her cup, help her feel regulated, safe, seen, soothed, and secure, that will help her be less clingy. And the one other thing I'd say is, when she is clingy, I would do 2 things. I would, 1, do your best to really respond to that in a loving way, and just, again, not try and get her not to be clingy. Take some nice deep breaths, and then pick her up, cuddle with her, rub noses with her, push her on the swing, go for a little walk, do something that really helps her in that moment feel connected, helps you have some release of stress that you're feeling in that moment. And also make sure, if you've got somebody else, whether it's a sibling, a spouse, somebody nearby, there are times when we all need a break for ourselves. And I know in particular in this time when there's social distancing, it's really hard. That may be a time to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get out this toy that we don't get out very often. Or I'm going to put on some music and I'm going to go to the bathroom for 2 minutes. Whatever it is, do the things that help you stay regulated so you're not lashing out in some way. And just do your best. And when you get a break later, whether it's before bed, do some things to soothe yourself so that you can come back as refreshed as possible. Because it's just, there's stress and there's demands on us now that have never been placed on us. And so reduce those expectations on yourself. Be gentle and kind with yourself and with your kids. So that's it, folks. That's all I've got. I do want to say, if you have any questions or comments, now is the time. I will respond after the fact. So those of you that are watching this as a video replay know that I do my best to respond afterwards. I want to reiterate that I will be here again on Wednesday, same time. So that was 10 a.m. Eastern US. I will be talking about dealing with big feelings. So if anybody has big feelings, or your kids have been having big feelings, that's what I'll be talking about on Wednesday. If you don't already like Shawnee Lavender Parent Coaching, doing that is the best way to make sure that you get to see that video. And feel free, again, to post comments or questions to this video or anything else. And please share if you have parent friends who you think could use it. Feel free to share this with them as well. I am on Instagram, Shawnee Lavender. I am obviously here on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel which you can subscribe to, and I post these videos on my YouTube channel after the fact. So if watching on Facebook you don't like it or it's not convenient for you, subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get notified when I have new videos there. So thank you all so much for your time and energy and your comments and your love. Thank you for parenting and being out there doing the very best you know how, and be graceful with yourselves and your kids, and let yourselves have fun in this time too. I know it's hard, and I hope you're finding some ways to be fun and have some fun and feel loved and connected. Because the one other thing I'll say, my opinion about this time is, I think and I hope that this experience is helping us all sort the wheat from the chaff in our lives and say, you know what, what's really important to me? What matters in our family? And really being able to then make some choices out of that. It might not happen immediately for all of us. Maybe it takes us a year to make those changes, or 3 years, or 30 seconds, it doesn't matter, but really being able to use this time to say, yeah, what really fed us? What kept us feeling connected and loved and safe? And what are the things that we actually can do without? And maybe we want to change about, our old normal. So thank you all very much. I appreciate each of you and the way you're showing up in the world. And thank you for showing up here with me today. Take care, everybody. Bye.